From Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead, Minnesota, welcome to Benchwarmers. Today's featured guests are head football coach for the Minnesota State Moorhead Dragons, Steve Lockway. Sports reporter for the Forum in Fargo Moorhead, Eric Peterson. Midco Sports Network's reporter-producer, Jody Norstead. And our host, Midco Sports Network's Tom Neiman.
Hello, welcome to Benchwarmers. We're at Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead, Minnesota this week, and joined by another brilliant panel, and we'll talk about all things sports in the state of Minnesota. And before we get to that, though, we got to clear one thing up on Twitter. Eric Peterson, we'll show you a picture of this. What is this banner, this photo of on your Twitter page? What is this?
It's just a corn cob. I think it's some fall corn, very colorful thing. I try to stay neutral in some of my photos there. I thought it looked neat, but I haven't.
Isn't there some bias with the cobbers, though, in that? You could say,
I
you could
guess
argue.
there is. I just thought it was a cool photo. I haven't updated it for 3 years now. I'm going to, because it's been painfully pointed out that it's kind of getting stale.
No, I like it. I just didn't know what it was. I wanted to point that out. All right. You, sir, have been overseas where in the last couple of weeks? This is interesting.
I started in Dubai, was there for about 5 days, went to Lebanon, was there for a little more than a week, and then ended it in Ireland, in Dublin. So it was quite the journey, a little more than 2 weeks, and I was just checking some things out.
But some family related a little bit on
Dubai is more of an in-law relationship,
okay.
But I have family in Lebanon and Ireland, so that was part of the trip. And I also got to see a Radiohead concert on the final night in Dublin, so that was kind of the nice capper of the whole thing.
All right. Coach, you were in Peru recently, is that right?
My wife and I did go to Peru, hike the Inca Trail, 23 miles over 2 mountain passes, 4 days, camped at over 12,000 feet.
Nice.
And then we took the whole family to Cuba. It was Cuba, Missouri, so it was relatively safe. So that was a good vacation at the end of May.
But Peru was a bucket list thing, and it was cool, huh?
Absolutely, phenomenal. Ended in Machu Picchu, the old Incan city just found in the 40s. Phenomenal to see what they did, over 500 years ago. Have no idea how they got those rocks up the mountain and refaced the whole thing, but really, really, really cool.
Interesting. All right. And then Jody, you were in Bismarck, North Dakota, doing softball over the
Another
weekend,
bucket
right?
list item, I tell you what, to be able to go to Bismarck. No, actually, to see the McQuades is pretty awesome. To see 450 teams, we got an opportunity to televise a couple of games. Got to see the Wounded Warrior Amputee All-Star softball team, guys that have lost limbs and play softball and play it at a high level. It was pretty cool.
All right. I was doing some rodeo in Clear Lake, South Dakota, so that was kind of fun as well. All right, let's get to Dragon football. And this is a program on the rise in the Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference. 7 wins last year. That's the most, I think, since 1999. Come a long way since, one win maybe 5 years ago, and the program is just better all the time, right?
Yeah, it has been something that, we've continually gotten better, and that's kind of been our measuring stick each year of, what do we got to do to be better this year than last year, and, sequentially we just put some things in place. I think we've transformed our culture, and now we're starting to reap some of the benefits of that.
Really good at home, 5-1 at home, and the one loss was, I think, by 3 points to St. Cloud, and you guys were awesome at home last year, right?
Yeah, I think our kids like playing at home. They like the energy. They like the turf, certainly. I think our stadium's starting to become a home field advantage as the attendance has risen, and so I think certainly it plays into the pace of our play, up-tempo offense with the turf, and there's a comfort level, certainly, of being at home.
You guys cover the Dragons on a regular basis. What have you seen with the football program?
Just the gradual progression, like you said, 7 wins last year, 6 wins the year before, an established quarterback coming back in Demetrius Carr. But, ask Coach Locko, what's the challenge in, making that improvement to being a above 500 team? What's the challenge from getting from that to being maybe a top of the conference team or a team that challenges for a playoff spot?
Well, I think it comes down to depth, and you've maybe seen that in the last couple of years. We had a couple injuries that kind of put us behind. 2 years ago we were off to a great start, and then we lose our quarterback and our leading receiver, and we stumbled a little in the middle of the season. As the depth increases, you overcome injuries, but you also are better on special teams. I felt like last year we took another step forward, really good redshirt class that I think we'll take another step forward again this year and probably have the best club that we've had since my time there.
And I think that's true. I mean, you look at the weapons that they have, a guy like Damon Gibson who, I don't know, you almost think that this guy's going to be on a lot of NFL teams' radars when it's all said and done. Whether he wants to play at the next level, who knows, but what we've seen from Damon Gibson, a kid that grew up in a small town community, went to Clinton Graceville Beardsley High School, and has stepped on and just been a huge target for this team, and have Demetrius Carr slinging it downfield, and now a run game in Austin Stone. But I think, as you mentioned, you guys have learned we need to play defense. In those last 4 games of last season, the 4-game win streak, I think the defense was turning a corner a little bit, and you almost think that you can carry that momentum into this year, I would imagine.
And Coach Lockwood wanted Damon Gibson to be a defensive end when he came in, so you had that little battle from him at the start.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Damon went out and we didn't get him to be a DN. He was a wide out. Good decision. Makes us look a lot smarter now.
Gibson led the Northern Sun in yards receiving per game last year. So, yeah, leading quarterback, running back, wide receiver. You got your leading tackler coming back on defense as well.
Yeah, and you know, the thing people don't really remember is Herman Gray was our starting running back, got hurt right before the season started, so we'll have him back on top with Austin Stone, and so we got a lot of weapons on offense.
You guys open up at Augustana on September 2nd. We've got 3 Minnesota State Moorhead Dragon football games on Midco Sports Network this year, including that opener at Augustana on a Saturday, and then you got a short week. You come right back and play Southwest Minnesota State on that next Thursday. We'll have that game as well. You take a look at the TV schedule here, but you start out a little tough there.
Absolutely, you know, on the road at Augie will certainly be a tough game. But you know what? We like our chances. We like where our football team has progressed. We understand, you know, what it takes to win on the road. So hopefully we can go into that situation and be able to play real well. And then, you know, we've got to turn it around, whether win or lose, real quick. Come back, play Thursday night at home. It won't be color rush like you want, but if we can get some donor to get all red helmets for us, we could maybe make that happen. So maybe open up the pocketbook here at the end of the show, and Eric's salary can make that happen.
I don't think it's going to make much happen.
Thursday night, like the NFL's got the all same color jerseys. You want the Dragons to do that?
That'd be interesting. Add a little flavor, a little ketchup, or I don't know, all white or something like that.
Ketchup. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting with Coach Lockwood when we come back. Got into South Dakota, Sioux Falls heavily this year. A lot of North Dakota kids coming in as well. We'll talk about that. We get to the Twins and the Timberwolves as we continue here on Benchwarmers in Moorhead, Minnesota.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers, Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead, Minnesota this week, talking Dragon football with head coach Steve Lockway, and recruiting is the lifeblood of football. And the beautiful thing about winning games, you guys won 7 games last year, and you get the culture changed, like you said. Recruiting, I don't know if it gets easier, but you start to get maybe kids you wouldn't have got before?
Well, absolutely. The better we've noticed, the better we've gotten, the better kids that have become interested, and then the better kids we've gotten. And I think that only makes sense. You know, when we were 1-10, we didn't have a lot of high-end recruits banging down our door to come play at Moorhead, but as we got better, better and better guys have been interested, and so it's been kind of a snowball effect. And so we were really fortunate last year to come away with a really good class.
And you got into Sioux Falls this year, and people down there took notice. A couple kids from O'Gorman, Hunter Thompson, Sam Bernison, Tyson Jan, and a couple kids from Roosevelt, another kid from Sioux Falls, Lincoln, and people down there took notice, and that's a big deal, huh?
Well, it was big for us, and that was a point of emphasis for us to get into that South Dakota area heavier than we had. We felt like, you know, a couple years ago with the win against Augie, we played Sioux Falls this year pretty solid, a solid win over Northern, that it was kind of primed for us to be able to go down there and be successful in recruiting. And we know that there's a lot of talent in that area, and so if we could open that recruiting area, we thought we could take our team to the next level, and felt like Alex Foster, a South Dakota native, did a really good job recruiting there.
All right. Anything you guys noticed in the upcoming recruiting class, or the class coming in this fall?
Well, how does it get as you build a roster? I'm sure early on when you're coming off 1-10, you can use a little bit of everything, but how do you like target it year by year when you do build some depth? Or you say you had a class the year before where there's a lot of offensive linemen, and then, you know, Demetrius Carr being senior, maybe there's a quarterback who becomes a priority. Does that get more difficult as you get better to kind of target where your recruiting is going?
Well, I think it gets more strategic as your program gets better. You were right. When we first started, anybody that could play, if they were good, we'd take them any position and figure it out. Now there's a little bit more selectiveness based off of where our seniors, where our juniors, always trying to build depth on the offense and defensive line, and then really trying to be, you know, targeted on difference makers at key position, whether it's wide out or corner or defensive end. And I felt like we did a good job of doing that, as well as building depth.
And I think that's just huge, going to South Dakota and getting those players, because that's something that you guys it's been a lot of local players you guys have been getting, obviously, and people saw maybe a little bit of a change. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 area guys that you got. But you go down and get Sioux Falls, and you really start to get in those homes and seeing MSUM have success, like you mentioned, the win against Augustana and competing against those teams. I mean, you watched NDSU go down there and get South Dakota kids and have success with those kids. So to see MSU Moorhead start going down there and you just kind of raising the level of the program has been good, and you're going to need to do that. You're going to need to go into enemy territory and get some guys to steal away from those programs, because you hurt their program and you help your program.
And to get that done, but still do it around here too. You got a kid from Fargo Davies and one from Oak Grove here in Moorhead. You still keep this area intact as well, right?
Absolutely. I think there's always that balance, and I think it's good. South Dakota is a place I recruited when I was at North Dakota State, and I knew that was important, and I was waiting for a program to get to the point where we felt like we could really succeed there, and so it was nice to see that we did that. Now we just got to continue to build on it each year.
I know from talking to you a few years ago, you had kind of a pie chart of the person, where you want your recruits from, like 60 to 70% from like 100-mile radius, and then you expand it out. You still kind of have that loose pie chart of where you want these recruits to come from, and has that changed?
I think it's evolved a little bit as far as extending to some skill positions and some difference makers, but we have kept our radius about a 300-mile radius. That is where we've targeted. We don't recruit all out in California and Florida and wherever. Not that that's bad. Our coaches would love to go there in the winter, but we've decided we're going to win right in the backyard, and we're going to focus on those schools. And consistency has really been there for us. It's helped us. If you look at our roster, you see a lot of multiple kids from the same school because they've had a good experience here. They go back, they tell their buddy, and now we got a chance to get them again in the next wave in the next year. So.
And I think the investment that the school has taken in the football team has helped too. Adding scholarships, a new turf field, bringing recruits to that versus what it was maybe when you first started out, Steve, it probably made a world of difference.
Oh, without a doubt, it takes a village. I think some people point and go, I've done this great job. Well, I've done a little bit, but assistant coaches are on the road. They're recruiting. Administration has gotten the things in place, the resources that we've needed. The community has bought into us and really supported us. So I think it all goes hand in hand. And so you don't just see one guy's effort or whatnot. You see a village that's really pushing this program forward.
All right, 7 wins last year for the Dragons, building on that, going into the Northern Sun season this year. And again, the opener at Augustana on Saturday, September 2nd for Steve Lockway's team. When we come back and get into some national stuff, talk about the Twins. Can they keep it going? They're in first place as we sit here right now. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're getting me excited. They're getting everybody excited. We'll see with the Jimmy Butler trade what's going to happen there. Will they keep Ricky Rubio? We'll talk about the Twins and the T-Wolves when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. Let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Made a big splash on draft day, trading for Jimmy Butler. They give up Zach LaVine and Chris Dunn off the Timberwolves roster to get Jimmy Butler. Is he one of the top players in the NBA? Was this a great move, Jody?
Well, I mean, everyone's been saying top 15 player, and I would have to agree just because of what he does on both the offensive side and defensive side and what he can add to Minnesota, and maybe a light of fire under Andrew Wiggins, who's been a little bit disappointing to say the least on the defensive end. So maybe he helps out with that. And I think a lot of the people that don't like this trade have said, well, why are you doing this when Golden State is so good and they're going to dominate the West?
Terrible excuse.
But I think if you're waiting for Golden State's window to be over, what's going to happen to your window? Because you have 2 players in Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns that are, they're reaching there. Why not speed up the process? Because there's no guarantees that one of those guys isn't going to get injured, a la Zach LaVine last year. Zach LaVine last year. So I think it was a great move by the Timberwolves. Let's speed up the process and see what we can do.
With Jimmy Butler in the lineup, the average age for the starting 5 probably will be 24 years old. Golden State's average starting 5, their age is 28 right now. So this sets up really nice, I think, for the next couple of years.
Well, like Jody said, I don't think you can wait for Golden State to get bad.
No.
And a couple of years ago, how many thought the Heat would kind of unravel like they did when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh got together? Everyone was like, a decade, no one's going to touch that team. You've got to be ready to get better in case a team like that slips or an injury happens. What if Steph Curry had an injury or Klay Thompson gets bored playing fourth fiddle and leaves during free agency? Right. The other thing is, you don't go from here to here. They got to get to the playoffs. They got to get these guys experience. So, say it is 2 or 3 years down the road. You want Karl Anthony Towns, you want Andrew Wiggins, and guys like that to have playoff experience. And they weren't going any. Step one is make the playoffs. You're not going to just go from being bad to a championship team overnight.
Win half your games first. This team should be able to win 41 games, don't you think, with Butler in the lineup?
We'll see.
Start with that.
The thing, you still have to address point guard, and I don't know. I know you love Ricky Rubio.
I'm not a Ricky Rubio fan, but he's okay.
But say even you keep Rubio, and you have Rubio, Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins, and Karl Anthony Towns. This team has no bench. And no matter how good your starting five is, they have to develop a bench. And there's really not much room to do that. Shabazz Mohammed, they might lose him because I don't think they're going to pay him what he's worth. So what's your bench right now? Tyus Jones and...
But they have some cap space to do something about that.
But that cap space is going to get eaten up in a hurry. That's one... In this day and age, the $12 million to $14 million they have, that's one player. One player doesn't give you depth.
And Andre Iguodala? J.J. Redick, a guy that can shoot the three?
But... Again, that doesn't add to depth, adding one J.J. Redick. The other thing that's out there, do you trade Ricky Rubio, trade him for basically nothing or picks to create cap space and go out and get a guy like Kyle Lowry, Drew Holiday, George Hill, or some guys? So you try to go all in and almost get a big 3.5, close to a big 4, and then fill in what you can after that. There's a lot of different things that can happen here.
They got better with Butler. We all agree on that, and it's just I want them to be good so bad, and they're going in the right direction, I think.
And I got playoffs. Playoffs? You lost me at playoffs in the Timberwolves. That's all I got to add. But playoffs?
Well, if you trade for Jimmy Butler, you're not trading for him to stay in the lottery.
Oh.
Well, someone said above 500 season for you a few years ago. If they had that attitude, what would you have said? That has to be your aspiration, right?
Yep, I'm with you. I don't know what's in the coffee.
Dragons and Wolves make the playoffs next year.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Eat my words there.
And the other thing, I think the Wolves, this is the summer to do it. You have to do something now because Jimmy Butler, you have him for 2 more years. You can't wait now. This is time to put all your chips in the middle of the table and go for it.
You are right on that. We don't have time to get to the Twins, but they are the division leaders right now. They might make the playoffs. We will see on that. A long ways to go, still about 90 games to go. But I will say this, Houston's going to win the World Series. Just keep that in mind right now. When we come back, we've got our Winging It question from the lunchtime crowd here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Moorhead.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. Time for our Winging It question of the week into the lunchtime crowd here at Buffalo Wild Wings. And for that question, here is Greg Enkers.
All right, thanks, Tom. I am joined here by Brock from Red Lake Falls. He's 10 years old, and he's got a real good question for you guys today. Brock, what's your question?
What do the 3 Mankato State men's hockey coaches have in common?
Tom, guys, good luck.
All right, Brock with a stumper for the panel here, and he thought he was going to get us the question, what do the hockey coaches at Minnesota State Mankato all have in common, the head coach and 2 assistants? Jody Norstead knows this.
Section 8, represent, right? It starts with Mike Hastings. He's from Crookston. He's the head coach. And then Darren Blue from East Grand Forks. I can't believe you guys didn't know this. And Todd Knott from Red Lake Falls. In those 3 communities all around where you grew up, right?
Yeah, Climax, Minnesota.
And Steve was just talking about he had his only hole-in-one at the Climax Golf Course. So I think there's even more of a tie-in. But how about the hockey knowledge from the kid?
Well done.
My guess was they're all hockey coaches.
Yeah, close enough.
Does that count?
You were right, Jody. A little more in-depth, so there you go. Thanks a lot, Brock, for the Winging It question of the week. When we come back, at a poll question in the state of Minnesota. What is the most popular high school sport? Is it hockey, football, basketball, baseball? We'll have that coming up next.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. Buffalo Wild Wings here in Moorhead, Minnesota. Our poll question this week is, what is the most popular high school sport in the state of Minnesota? And we had about 230 votes. 58% of those say hockey, football, right at about a quarter of the vote, and then less than 10% for baseball and basketball in the state of Minnesota. Probably not a surprise that hockey's up there. Thought maybe hoops would be a little higher, but do you run into that when you're out recruiting? And are there kids, you played football in the fall and hockey runs from December through March, but are there kids that play both and maybe go the hockey way?
Well, definitely, and we signed a couple guys out of Farmington that were hockey players this year, but you definitely see it's difficult. They play a lot of Saturday games, try and get them on a visit in the winter, and then it's difficult to kind of pry them away from the junior path, and so you definitely see that in the state of Minnesota.
All right. It's a hockey state, right?
Most popular, though, what's the criteria? Most popular in fan interest and people playing it? Or the thing about hockey, though, you're limited because the amount of Division I programs is so little. If you want to go most popular overall numbers, I think you'd have to look at sport like football, basketball. But I guess what probably push hockey over the top is their state tournament is like one of the crown jewel things in the state. It has some national recognition. So in that respect, probably that's what I think pushed it over the top.
And Moorhead's boys, great program, went all the way to the state final a year ago before losing to Grand Rapids. So the Moorhead program obviously up there. And let's talk about quickly former Moorhead high school hockey player Matt Cullen just finished up with the Penguins, won the Stanley Cup. Will he play one more year, Jody? What do you think?
The cup is coming back to Moorhead, which is awesome. I don't know. I feel like he's continuing to be on that fine line. I think it was 80-20 retirement right after. I think it's more 50-50 now, so I won't be surprised to see Cullen play another year. If you get a shot with the Penguins, it's hard to turn down another year with Crosby, Malkin, in the core that they have there.
He would be 41 years old this year.
Crazy.
It would be his 20th season in professional hockey. If he hung it up, you would say, congrats, we hate to see you go, but Matt Cullen, we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great season. Steve Lockway with the Minnesota State Moorhead Dragons here. Big E, thanks. Jody, appreciate it. We will see you in a couple weeks again on Benchwarmers here from Buffalo Wild Wings.